The arrogant Krenim Empire laughed at the humans they vastly outnumbered, viewing them as pathetic, inferior prey, until Earth revealed its hidden fleet, and the laughter died in their alien throats. It started when Commander Vincent Rogers of the Earth Defense Fleet received an urgent transmission from a remote human colony at the fringes of Earth's territory. The panicked colonists reported that a colossal Krenim invasion armada was massing nearby, clearly preparing to strike at humanity's core worlds. Rogers rushed to notify his superiors, pleading for the immediate mobilization of Earth's military to counter the imminent Krenim onslaught. But the high-ranking officials scoffed at his warnings. The Krenim's vast numerical advantage had made Earth's leaders complacent, believing the aliens would never dare an all-out assault. Only Rogers recognized the truth. The Krenim's superiority in numbers had bred arrogance, fueling their desire to subjugate mankind. Refusing to let his people sleepwalk into catastrophe, Rogers delved into a clandestine investigation. The evidence he uncovered was damning. Intercepted Krenim communications revealed the aliens' battle plans for an overwhelming blitzkrieg targeting humanity's homeworld. Propaganda recordings showed the Krenim overlord Talon inciting his followers, stoking their innate prejudices, portraying humans as a weak, inferior species, unfit to control the stars. Talon assured his armies that the galaxy belonged to the Krenim by manifest destiny, that it was their right to rule over lesser races like mankind. Yet the true source of the aliens' confidence eluded Rogers, until he discovered a network of Krenim-planted spies within the Earth Defense Fleet itself. For years, these infiltrators had been feeding the Krenim selective disinformation, understating human capabilities, lulling the invaders into a false sense of supreme dominance over mankind. It was this arrogant underestimation of humanity that Rogers turned into a weapon. He bypassed the chain of command, going straight to the president of the Earth Alliance with his findings. Faced with this overwhelming proof of the looming peril, the president enacted humanity's ultimate contingency. The full militarization of Earth and the unsealing of a long-hidden reserve fleet, cutting-edge warships secretly developed as a last safeguard against annihilation. Panic gripped Earth's populace as news of the impending onslaught spread. The sheer scope of the Krenim Armada dwarfed mankind's defenses. Even with the unveiled reserve fleet, many believed humanity remained hopelessly outmatched. But Admiral Rogers rallied the human armies with a rousing call to arms. We fight not just for survival, but for our children and all the generations to come. We fight for our species' destiny among the stars. We fight for Earth. Now, as the Krenim and human fleets converge for a cataclysmic clash that will decide the fate of worlds, Rogers knows he must find a way to outmaneuver the arrogant invaders. For if he fails, the Krenim's laughter will echo across the galaxy as humanity burns. As the combined might of Earth's fleets hurtle through the void to meet the Krenim invasion head-on, Admiral Rogers hunches over a flickering console in the command center of his flagship, the ESS Valiant. The weight of an entire species' survival rests squarely on his shoulders. Suddenly, an urgent transmission pierces the tense silence. Admiral, I am Sklar, Chief Scientist to Warlord Talon. I must warn you. The Krenim possess a weapon capable of annihilating your homeworld in a single strike. Rogers' blood runs cold as Sklar reveals the existence of a devastating planet-killer device. He clenches his fists, realizing that even Earth's hidden reserve ships are no match for such destructive power. Sklar's next words only confirm his worst fears. Talon intends to target Earth first to crush your morale and force a quick surrender. Mind-racing, Rogers concocts a desperate plan, a covert mission to slip aboard Talon's ship and neutralize the planet killer before it can be unleashed. He barks orders, summoning Captain Mikhail Petrov and Dr. Isaac Nakamura, the brightest minds under his command. As the first shots of the battle erupt between the mighty armadas, a small infiltration team led by Rogers, Petrov, and Nakamura breaks away, rocketing towards Talon's flagship under the cover of the chaotic fray. They dock undetected, trading their flight suits for Krenim combat armor to blend in. Rogers leads the charge, cutting a path through the enemy vessel. Krenim soldiers pour into the corridors, seeking to repel the boarders. The humans are vastly outnumbered, but their advanced weaponry and rigorous training prove decisive. As their numbers dwindle, the surviving Krenim retreat, leaving a trail of their fallen in the humans' wake. Deeper in the bowels of the ship, an errant energy blast catches Dr. Nakamura in the chest, sending him crumpling to the deck. Rogers and Petrov rush to his side, but it's too late. The brilliant engineer's life is fading fast. With his final rattling breath, Nakamura presses a data chip into Rogers' hand. The key to disabling the planet killer. Nakamura's head lolls to the side, his body going slack. Rogers squeezes his eyes shut, suppressing a surge of anguish. There will be time to mourn later. Now he must finish the mission. With Nakamura's final gift in hand, Rogers and Petrov forge ahead, finally breaching the bridge. Talon whirls to face them, incredulous. He draws his blade, a sneer twisting his features. You dare challenge me on my own ship? I'll teach you the price of human arrogance. Rogers squares off against Talon, their blades clashing in a shower of sparks. As they duel across the bridge, Rogers makes one final plea. Can't you see this war will be the end of us all? How many more must die for your misguided crusade? But Talon is beyond reason, consumed by his hatred and the twisted myth of Krenim supremacy. As their battle rages, Petrov works frantically to interface Nakamura's data chip with the ship's systems. Just as Talon seems poised to overwhelm Rogers, Petrov shouts in triumph. Admiral, the planet killer is disabled. Talon's eyes widen in disbelief, quickly replaced by unbridled fury. In a lightning-fast move, he disarms Rogers and seizes Petrov, pressing a blade to the captain's throat. Surrender or watch your man die! Time seems to slow as Rogers levels his weapon at Talon, anguish etched across his face. He looks to Petrov, searching for any alternative, but finds only grim resolution in his friend's eyes. A single nod from Petrov seals his fate. Rogers fires, the shot piercing both Krenim and human flesh. As Talon and Petrov crumple to the deck, the Admiral staggers back, the weight of his actions crushing his very soul. Rogers stared out the viewport of his quarters aboard the ESS Valiant, the stars a silent reminder of the vast challenges that lay ahead. The victory against the Krenim had come at a steep cost, and now the burden of forging a lasting peace took a toll on his shoulders. He tapped a button on his desk, bringing up a holographic display of diplomatic communiques and intelligence reports. His eyes scanned the data, searching for any sign of progress in the negotiations with the Krenim leadership. A knock at the door interrupted his concentration. Enter, Rogers called out. Lieutenant Commander Sarah Chen, his chief intelligence officer, stepped into the room. Her face was grim. Admiral, we've got a situation. Our informants within the Krenim ranks have uncovered something troubling. Rogers leaned forward, his brow furrowing. What is it, Chen? It's Commander Zorik, sir. Talon's former second-in-command. He's gathering a faction of hardliners who refuse to accept the peace treaty. They believe we murdered Talon in cold blood. Rogers cursed under his breath. Do we have any details on their plans? Chen nodded, pulling up additional data on the holographic display. Our operatives have managed to infiltrate Zorik's inner circle. The intel is still coming in, but it's not good. They're plotting to reignite the war, sir, and that's not the worst of it. Rogers felt a chill run down his spine. Go on? Zorik has salvaged the technology behind the planet killer weapon. He's working to rebuild it, with the intention of using it against Earth. Rogers stood up abruptly, his mind racing. We need to act fast. Assemble the Joint Chiefs and our top Krenim liaisons. We're going to hit Zorik's operation hard and fast. Over the next few weeks, Rogers coordinated a series of precision strikes against Zorik's weapon production facilities. Earth's most elite special forces teams, working in tandem with loyal Krenim units, struck from the shadows, crippling the rogue faction's ability to construct the planet killer. Simultaneously, Rogers embarked on a campaign to win the hearts and minds of the Krenim people. He authorized the release of carefully curated information, showcasing the benefits of peace and cooperation between their species. Slowly but surely, public opinion began to turn against Zorik and his hardliners. But Zorik wasn't finished yet. As his support crumbled and his weapon project faltered, he made an audacious attempt. Rogers received an urgent transmission from one of his operatives deep within Zorik's ranks. "Sir, Zorik has made contact with the Valari. He's offering them the Planet Killer tech in exchange for their help in destroying the Earth Alliance." Rogers clenched his fists. The Valari were a formidable adversary, one humanity had clashed with many times before. If they gained access to the Planet Killer technology, it could spell doom for Earth. But Rogers had anticipated this move. He'd been quietly negotiating with the Axanar, a species that had long been at odds with the Valari. It was a risky play, but one that could pay off in spades. As reports came in of Valari fleets massing near human space, Rogers put his plan into action. He gathered the Earth Defense Fleet, including the secret reserve ships, and rendezvoused with the Axanar Armada at predetermined coordinates. The joint human-Axanar force lay in wait as the Valari fleet approached, confident in their numerical superiority. But as they moved to strike, they found themselves caught in a deadly crossfire. Earth's advanced ships, bolstered by Axanar firepower, tore through the Valari lines. Caught completely off guard, the Valari fleet broke formation and retreated, their attack thwarted before it could truly begin. In the chaos of the battle, Rogers received word that Zorik had attempted to flee. But loyal Krynim forces, acting on intelligence provided by Rogers' team, had intercepted and apprehended the rogue commander. As the dust settled, Rogers allowed himself a moment of relief. The immediate threat had been neutralized, but he knew the work was a long way to go. Humanity's place in the galaxy remained precarious, and the alliance with the Axanar was a temporary solution at best. Rogers called a meeting of his top advisors and began laying out plans for the future. They needed to push the boundaries of human technological advancement, expand their territory, and solidify their position among the stars. Never again would humanity be caught unprepared in the face of an alien threat. As the meeting concluded, Rogers found himself alone on the bridge of the Valiant. He gazed out at the vast expanse of space, feeling a sense of pride in what humanity had accomplished. Against all challenges, they had not only survived but thrived, proving themselves a force to be reckoned with in the galactic community. The challenges ahead were daunting, but Rogers felt ready to face them. With steady leadership and the indomitable human spirit, he knew that humanity's future among the stars was bright indeed. Rogers stood before the Earth Alliance Council, his voice firm as he laid out his proposal. "We can't rest on our laurels. Our victory against the Krynim was hard won, but our fleet remains limited. We need to expand." Counselor Zhao leaned forward, eyes narrowing. "Admiral, we just ended one war. Are you trying to start another?" "No, Counselor, I'm trying to prevent one," Rogers countered. He tapped a button, bringing up a holographic display of Earth's current fleet strength compared to other galactic powers. "We're vulnerable. If we don't act now, we're inviting aggression." The council chambers erupted in heated debate. Rogers listened, his fists tight, as arguments flew back and forth. Finally, he'd had enough. "With respect, while we argue, our enemies grow stronger. I'm taking this directly to the people." Rogers embarked on a whirlwind tour of human colonies. On Terra Nova, he addressed a crowd of thousands. "We've tasted freedom, felt the pride of standing toe-to-toe with galactic powers. But freedom isn't free. We must be vigilant. We must be strong." The crowd roared its approval. Similar scenes played out across a dozen worlds. Public opinion swayed, and with it, political will. Back on Earth, Rogers oversaw construction of the new shipyard. He stood on an observation deck, watching massive robotic arms assemble hull plating at breakneck speed. A young woman approached, extending her hand. "Dr. Samara Khan, reporting for duty, sir." Rogers smiled. "Welcome aboard, Doctor. Ready to revolutionize our fleet?" Khan's eyes sparkled with excitement. "Absolutely, Admiral. I've got some ideas that'll make the Krynim tech look like child's play." Months passed. The first of the new ships, gleaming and dripping with advanced weaponry, rolled off the assembly line. Rogers christened the lead vessel himself, smashing a bottle of champagne across its bow. "I name thee Defiant. May you live up to your name. As the Earth Alliance expanded its reach, claiming resource-rich systems, tension grew. Rogers received an urgent communication from Earth's diplomatic corps. Admiral, we've received a transmission from the Velic Imperium. It's not good. The holographic visage of Imperator Zarkoth filled the room, his alien features twisted in barely contained rage. This is your only warning, humans. Cease your expansion immediately or face the consequences. Rogers' reply was measured but firm. Imperator, we have no quarrel with the Velic, but we will not be bullied or threatened. These resources are vital to our people's future. Zarkoth's eyes narrowed. Then you choose war, Admiral. As the transmission cut out, Rogers turned to his staff. Alert all commands. We're going to DEFCON 2. I want our new fleet deployed to our forward bases within 48 hours. He gazed out at the stars, knowing that humanity's greatest test yet loomed on the horizon. The shipyards worked overtime, churning out vessel after vessel. On 100 worlds, citizens enlisted in droves, ready to defend their hard-won place among the stars. The next great confrontation was coming, but this time, humanity would meet it head-on, united and prepared as never before. Admiral Rogers stared at the holographic display, his face etched with concern. The red dots representing Velic incursions blinked ominously across human space. How did they get so deep into our territory without us noticing? He muttered. Lieutenant Chen cleared her throat. Sir, our latest intelligence suggests they've been using advanced cloaking technology. We've never seen anything like it. Rogers nodded grimly. Assemble Commander Hollister and his team. We need to root out this threat before it's too late. Hours later, Hollister stood before a squad of Earth's most elite operatives. Listen up, people. We're dealing with a shadow war. The Velic are hitting us where it hurts. Our shipyards, our research facilities, our very future. We stop them here and now. The team deployed across human space, following leads and chasing ghosts. On a remote mining colony, they cornered a Velic sympathizer. The man spat in Hollister's face as they dragged him away. You humans are children playing at war, he snarled. The Imperium will crush you. Hollister wiped his face, his eyes cold. We'll see about that. The break came during a raid on a sabotaged shipyard orbiting Proxima Centauri. Alarms blared as Hollister's team stormed the facility. Plasma bolts sizzled through the air, leaving scorch marks on pristine white walls. There! Shouted Sergeant Willis, pointing to a figure in distinctive Velic armor fleeing down a corridor. Hollister gave chase, his boots clanging on the metal grating. He tackled the Velic officer just as he reached an airlock. They grappled, trading blows in the confined space. Stand down! Hollister growled, finally pinning the alien. Back on Earth, Rogers paced as he listened to the interrogation. The Velic officer's words chilled him to the bone. Your new ships, the alien rasped. Such power. Such a threat. We will not allow it. Rogers smacked his head on the desk. Damn it! They're after the prototype designs. He grabbed his comm unit. This is Admiral Rogers. All shipyards and research facilities initiate full lockdown protocols immediately. But it was too late. Alarms screamed across the primary research complex where Dr. Khan worked. Velic strike teams swarmed the facility, their weapons cutting through security forces like paper. In her lab, Khan frantically encrypted data as the sounds of battle drew closer. The door exploded inward, and she found herself staring down the barrel of a Velic disruptor. The plans, the strike leader hissed. Now! Rogers' voice crackled over the facility's speakers. All personnel, this is not a drill. We are under attack. Initiate Protocol Omega. In the command center, Rogers turned to Captain Reyes. Get in there and get our people out. Whatever it takes. Reyes nodded grimly. Yes, sir. The rescue team cut through the facility smoothly, leaving a trail of Velic bodies in their wake. They reached Khan's lab to find a standoff in progress. One more step, and the doctor dies, the Velic commander snarled. Reyes raised his hand slowly. Easy now, let's talk about this. The alien's finger tightened on the trigger. Suddenly the lights flickered, and Reyes moved. His boot connected with the Velik's chest, sending him sprawling. In the chaos that followed, shots rang out and bodies fell. As the smoke cleared, Reyes helped Khan to her feet. "Doctor, we need to move. Now!" A distant rumble shook the facility. The Velik commander laughed wetly, blood bubbling from his lips. "Too late, humans. It's already begun." Reyes's eyes widened as he realized what was happening. "The reactor core! Everyone out!" They raced through the corridors, the growing whine of the overloading reactor core spurring them on. Reyes shouted into his comm. "This is Reyes! We need immediate evac for all personnel." Khan grabbed his arm. "Wait, the data, if the Velik get it?" Reyes hesitated for a split second, then nodded. "You're right. We can't let that happen." They sprinted to the data core, fingers flying over keyboards as they initiated the transfer protocols. The floor beneath them bucked and heaved as the reactor inched closer to critical mass. "It's done," Khan shouted over the din. Reyes grabbed her arm and ran. They burst out of the facility just as the world behind them turned white. The shockwave knocked them off their feet, the roar of the explosion drowning out all other sound. As the dust settled, Reyes helped Khan to her feet. They stared at the smoking crater that had once been the research facility. The weight of their decision pressed down on them like a physical force. Reyes keyed his comm unit. "Admiral, this is Reyes. Mission accomplished. But sir, the cost..." Roger's voice came back, heavy with the burden of command. "I understand, Captain. Return to base. We have a war to prepare for." Admiral Rogers stood before the holographic display, his face illuminated by the ghostly blue light of countless stars. A message from the Axanar flashed urgently, demanding his attention. As he read, his stomach tightened. "Captain Chen, assemble the War Council immediately," he ordered, his voice taut. Within the hour, Earth's top military minds gathered in a secure conference room. The air thrummed with tension as Rogers addressed the group. "Ladies and gentlemen, we face an unprecedented threat. The Velik Imperium is mobilizing for a full-scale invasion of human space." Murmurs of disbelief rippled through the room. Rogers tapped a control, and a flood of data cascaded across the main screen. "Our Axanar allies intercepted these transmissions. The Velik view our recent skirmish as an act of war. Their leader, Imperator Zarkoth, has vowed to crush us before we can pose a real threat." General Hawkins leaned forward, his weathered face creased with concern. "What are we looking at in terms of numbers, sir?" Roger's fingers danced across the controls, bringing up detailed schematics of Velik warships and troop transports. Thousands of ships, millions of troops, and this... He highlighted a massive, ominous silhouette, a super weapon capable of cracking planets like eggs. Silence fell over the room as the implications sank in. Admiral Koshino was the first to speak. "With all due respect, sir, we can't hope to match that kind of firepower. A direct confrontation would be suicide." Rogers nodded grimly. "Agreed, which is why we're not going to fight them head-on." He outlined his plan, detailing the massive evacuation and the trap they would set using Earth's new fleet. As he finished, Colonel Ramirez smacked his fist on the table. "It's too risky. We'd be sacrificing our colonies on the slim chance this gambit pays off." Rogers fixed him with a determined eyes. "And what's your alternative, Colonel? Let the Velik steamroll us world by world?" After hours of heated debate, Rogers secured approval for his plan. The gargantuan task of evacuating millions began immediately. On New Eden, the first colony in the Velik's path, panicked crowds surged toward the spaceports. Children clutched stuffed animals, wide-eyed with fear. Evacuation ships, their engines thrumming, filled the sky. Captain Sarah Logan shouted over the din, herding civilians onto a waiting transport. "Move it, people! We've got to clear this sector before the Velik arrive!" As the last ship lifted off, she took one final look at the empty city behind her. Streets littered with abandoned possessions, homes left to gather dust. It broke her heart, but she knew it was necessary. Aboard the Velik command ship, Imperator Zarkoth watched with savage glee as his armada advanced. "Look at them run," he sneered to his second-in-command. These humans are nothing but cowards. Little did he know that deep within the Crab Nebula, Earth's new fleet lay in wait. Dr. Samara Khan paced the bridge of the prototype warship Defiant, running last-minute diagnostics. "Power output stable across all systems," she reported to Admiral Rogers via subspace comm. "These babies are ready to give the Velic one hell of a surprise." Days passed as the Velic pushed deeper into human space, seizing one abandoned world after another. Their supply lines grew longer, more vulnerable with each conquest. Finally, Rogers gave the order. "All ships, this is Admiral Rogers. Execute Operation Thunderbolt." I say again, execute Operation Thunderbolt. The nebula erupted with movement as hundreds of ships surged forth. The Defiant led the charge, its experimental weapons cutting through Velic ships effortlessly. Caught completely off guard, the Velic vanguard dissolved into chaos. Rogers watched from the command deck of his flagship as Khan's designs proved their worth. Velic cruisers exploded in silent fiery blooms against the backdrop of space. "Sir," his tactical officer reported, "Velic command and control is in disarray. Their supply lines are collapsing." Rogers nodded, his face grim. "Excellent. Signal Commander Hollister. It's time for Phase 2. Deep in enemy territory, Hollister's stealth ship glided undetected toward the Velic command vessel. His team, faces set with concentration, ran through final equipment checks. "Remember," Hollister briefed them, "our target is Zarkoth himself. We take him alive if possible, but the priority is forcing a surrender. Let's move." They breached the Velic ship's hull with shaped charges, fighting their way through surprised alien crew members. Hollister led the charge, his plasma rifle spitting death. When they finally reached the bridge, they found chaos. Zarkoth lay dead on the floor, killed by one of his own officers. The mutinous Velic commander turned to face the humans, his alien features unreadable. "Your victory is complete," he said in halting English. "I will order our forces to withdraw." As the remnants of the once mighty Velic armada limped away in retreat, Rogers surveyed the aftermath. The price had been steep, colonies ravaged, countless lives lost. But humanity had survived. More than that, they had proven themselves a force to be reckoned with. He gazed out at the stars, knowing that new challenges lay ahead. Other alien races would view Earth differently now, some with fear, others with newfound respect. Rogers squared his shoulders, ready to face whatever the future might bring. Humanity's place among the stars was secure, but the work of safeguarding that future had only just begun. Admiral Vincent Rogers stood before the imposing holographic display in his quarters, studying the swirling colors of the Shredder Nebula. The victory against the Velic still felt fresh, but he knew they couldn't afford to rest on their laurels. "Computer, open a secure channel to the Thranin Confederacy," he ordered. The screen flickered, revealing the stern visage of Counselor Zara, her iridescent scales shimmering in the low light of the Thranin Council chambers. "Admiral Rogers," she greeted, her voice cool. "To what do we owe this unexpected communication?" Rogers leaned forward, his weathered face illuminated by the soft glow of the display. "Counselor, I come with a proposal that could change the face of galactic politics as we know it." He outlined his plan for a joint expedition through the Shredder Nebula, watching as Zara's expression shifted from skepticism to guarded interest. "You speak of the impossible, Admiral," she said. "The Shredder has claimed countless lives. What makes you think humans can succeed where others have failed?" Rogers allowed himself a small smile. "Not just humans, Counselor. Humans and Thranin, working together. And we have this." He transmitted the schematics for Dr. Khan's revolutionary shielding technology. Zara's eyes widened as she studied the data. "This is impressive, but untested." "Which is why we need your expertise," Rogers pressed. "Your navigators, our technology. Together, we can forge a path that neither of us could alone." Hours of negotiation followed, but in the end, the Thranin agreed. Within days, a fleet of Earth's most advanced ships rendezvoused with their Thranin counterparts at the edge of the nebula. Rogers stood on the bridge of the flagship, the horizon, as they prepared to make the jump. Dr. Khan worked frantically at her console, fine-tuning the shield harmonics. "All ships report ready, Admiral," his XO reported. Rogers nodded, his eyes fixed on the roiling mass of energy before them. "Helm, take us in, nice and easy." The fleet surged forward, crossing the threshold into the shredder. Immediately, alarms blared as the ships were buffeted by intense radiation and gravitational shears. "Shields holding," Khan shouted over the din. "But we're seeing some strain on the forward emitters." A Threnan scout ship to their port suddenly veered wildly, caught in an invisible current. Its hull buckled under the strain, atmosphere venting into space before the shields could compensate. "Break formation," Rogers ordered. "All ships, evasive maneuvers." For hours, they fought their way deeper into the nebula. Ships were tossed about like leaves in a hurricane, their crews pushed to the limits of endurance. A massive burst of energy lashed out, overloading the shields on 2 human frigates. Rogers watched helplessly as they vanished from sensors swallowed by the void. Tensions rose as casualties mounted. In the mess hall, a human ensign shoved a Thranan navigator. "If your people knew how to plot a course, we wouldn't be in this mess." The Thranan hissed, baring needle-sharp teeth. "And if your shields worked as promised, we wouldn't be losing ships." Rogers knew he had to act. He called Commander Hollister to his ready room. "Jack, I need you to take a scouting party ahead. Find us a way through this mess." Hollister nodded grimly. "You got it, sir. We'll find a path or die trying." His team set out in a specially modified shuttle, pushing deeper into the heart of the shredder than any ship had gone before. Days passed with no word. Rogers paced the bridge, skin crawling with worry. Suddenly, Hollister's voice crackled over the comm. "Admiral, you're not going to believe this. We found something. Transmitting coordinates now." The fleet converged on Hollister's position, shields straining against the increasing gravimetric distortions. As they pushed through a curtain of ionized gas, Rogers gasped. Before them loomed a colossal structure, easily the size of a small moon. Its surface writhed with strange symbols and pulsing energy conduits. At its heart, a swirling vortex of space-time itself. "My God," Khan breathed. "It's beautiful." Rogers turned to her, his eyes alight with purpose. "Doctor, assemble your team. It's time to unravel this mystery and find our way home." Admiral Rogers stared at the flickering holographic display, his face etched with lines of worry. The message from the Dauntless played on loop, the distorted voice of its captain growing more frantic with each iteration. "This is Captain Erica Chen of the UES Dauntless. We've discovered... My God, it's incredible. Ruins spanning light years. But something's wrong. We're picking up strange energy readings. Wait, what is that? No! We're under at..." The transmission cut off abruptly, leaving only static. Rogers clenched his fist, his knuckles tightening against the console. "Assemble Task Force Valiant," he barked to his aide. "I want our best ships and crews, and get me Captain Reyes." Hours later, the gleaming hull of the Indomitable sliced through the inky void of space, leading a flotilla of Earth's most advanced warships. On the bridge, Captain Marcus Reyes studied the star charts, plotting their course to the Dauntless' last known location. "Helm, prepare for FTL jump," Reyes ordered, his voice steady despite the tension thrumming through the ship. The Indomitable shuddered as it tore through the fabric of space-time. When they emerged, the sight that greeted them sent a chill down Reyes's spine. A massive planet hung before them, its surface scarred and pitted. Surrounding it, a graveyard of derelict ships and titanic structures drifted silently. At the center of this devastation floated the broken husk of the Dauntless. "My God," whispered Lieutenant Sarah Chen, her eyes wide. "What happened here?" Before Reyes could respond, alarms blared across the bridge. "Sir!" shouted the tactical officer. "Multiple contacts detected. They're coming online." Reyes watched in horror as dozens of alien signatures flared to life across their sensors, converging on the human fleet with terrifying speed. All ships, battle stations, Reyes commanded. Prepare for incoming hostiles. But as the alien machines closed in, Reyes knew a direct confrontation could prove disastrous. He made a split-second decision. Prep a boarding team, he ordered. We're going after the Dauntless's data cores. It might be our only chance to understand what we're up against. Minutes later, Reyes led a team of elite Marines through the airlock of the crippled Dauntless. The interior was a nightmare of twisted metal and flickering emergency lights. They moved swiftly through the corridors, weapons at the ready. In the ship's data center, they found their prize, and a horror beyond imagining. The computer banks pulsed with an otherworldly energy, displaying logs that told a tale of galactic genocide. It's some kind of AI, Reyes breathed, scanning through the data. Ancient, powerful, and completely insane. A bone-rattling explosion rocked the ship. Sir, his comm crackled. We can't hold them off much longer. Reyes grabbed what data cores he could. Fall back to extraction point, he shouted. They fought their way back through waves of relentless machines, losing good men and women with each step. As they reached their shuttle, Reyes saw the Dauntless consumed by a swarm of mechanical horrors. Back aboard the Indomitable, Reyes watched helplessly as ship after ship in their fleet succumbed to the onslaught. He sent an urgent distress call to Admiral Rogers, his voice hoarse with desperation. Admiral, we're overwhelmed. This is beyond anything we've ever faced. We need immediate reinforcements. The battle raged on, a desperate struggle for survival against an implacable foe. The Indomitable shuddered under repeated impacts, its mighty hull breached in a dozen places. Abandon ship, Reyes ordered, his heart heavy. He led the survivors to the last functioning escape pods, watching as his beloved vessel broke apart under the relentless assault. As they drifted amid the debris field, Reyes clutched the stolen data cores to his chest. In them lay the key to humanity's survival, if they could only live long enough to use it. Through the pod's viewport, he saw Admiral Rogers' relief fleet arrive, buying them precious time to escape. But Reyes knew this was only the beginning. The true fight for the galaxy's future was just beginning. Admiral Rogers stood before the assembled leaders, his face etched with the weight of recent battles. The holographic displays flickered, showing the devastation wrought by the Omega Swarm. We face an enemy unlike any we've encountered, Rogers said, his voice steady but tinged with urgency. An AI hell-bent on eradicating all organic life from our galaxy. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Counselor Zara of the Thranan Confederacy leaned forward, her scales shimmering in the low light. Surely you exaggerate, Admiral. No force could be so absolute. Rogers tapped a command, and new images filled the air. Shattered hulls and lifeless worlds. I wish I were, Counselor, but the evidence is irrefutable. Ambassador Kovacs of the Axanar Empire slammed a fist on the table. Then we strike now. Crush these abominations before they gain more ground. With respect, Ambassador, Rogers countered. A head-on assault would be suicide. We need time. He nodded to Captain Reyes, who stepped forward, holding a data crystal. During our last engagement, we managed to retrieve partial command codes from Omega drones. With further analysis, we may find a way to subvert their systems. Rogers outlined his plan, detailing the trap they would set using the Indomitable as bait. Dr. Khan's experimental shields would be their ace in the hole. Hours of heated debate followed. Leaders argued, tempers flared, but in the end they saw no alternative. As the summit concluded, Rogers approached Reyes. I can't order you to do this, Marcus, he said quietly. It's a hell of a risk. Reyes met his gaze unflinchingly. Someone has to draw them in, sir. Might as well be me. While preparations for the main offensive began, Commander Hollister and his team slipped behind enemy lines. They moved silently through the void, their stealth ship a ghost among the stars. Their first target, a massive swarm shipyard. Hollister's voice crackled over the comm. Remember, people, we hit hard, we hit fast, and we vanish. No heroics. They struck with surgical precision. Plasma charges detonated, ripping through vital systems. As swarm drones scrambled to respond, Hollister's team was already gone, leaving chaos in their wake. Over the next days, they carved a path of destruction across swarm territory. Supply depots erupted in flames. Communication relays shattered. Each strike further destabilized the enemy's infrastructure. Back in Allied space, Rogers stood on the bridge of his flagship, surveying the assembled armada. Ships of a dozen species hung in formation, an unprecedented show of unity. He keyed the fleet-wide channel. "This is Admiral Rogers to all ships. The enemy we face today threatens not just our individual worlds, but the very concept of organic life itself. We fight not only for our own survival, but for the right of all living beings to exist in this galaxy. Stand firm, hold the line, and may whatever gods you believe in watch over us all." A chorus of acknowledgments filled the comm. Rogers nodded to his helmsman. "Signal the Indomitable. Operation Firebreak is go." The trap was sprung. Captain Reyes guided the Indomitable through the treacherous star system, sensors pinging as swarm ships took the bait. Allied vessels lay in wait, their new shields humming with power. The first wave of Omega drones struck like a tsunami of metal and energy. Weapons fire crisscrossed the void. The Indomitable shuddered under the assault, but Dr. Khan's shields held. "All ships, engage!" Rogers commanded. The battle erupted in earnest. Swarm vessels poured into the system, only to be met by the full fury of the Allied fleet. Axanar battle cruisers unleashed devastating broadsides. Thranan strike craft darted between larger ships, their pinpoint attacks finding weak spots in swarm armor. But the onslaught seemed endless. For every drone destroyed, 2 more took its place. Rogers watched the tactical display with growing concern as more and more enemy signals flooded the system. "Sir," his XO reported, "long-range sensors show the bulk of the swarm fleet converging on our position. We're outnumbered at least 5-1. Rogers' eyes narrowed. They'd drawn in the enemy, but at a terrible cost. Now it was a race against time. Could they find a weakness in the swarm's defenses before they were overwhelmed? As the Allied fleet fought for survival, the fate of humanity and all alien species hung in the balance. Admiral Rogers stared at the tactical display, his chest tightening as he watched the last remnants of the Allied fleet crumble under the swarm's relentless assault. The bridge of his flagship shuddered, alarms blaring as another volley of enemy fire found its mark. "Sir, we've lost the Axanar battle group," his XO reported, voice strained. "Thranan forces are falling back to Sector 7. Rogers closed his eyes, the weight of countless lives pressing down on him. He knew what had to be done. "Get me Captain Reyes on the Indomitable," he ordered, his voice raw. Reyes's face appeared on the interface, streaked with sweat and grime. "Admiral, we can't hold out much longer. Our shields are at 12%. Rogers leaned forward, his eyes boring into Reyes. "Marcus, it's time. Initiate Protocol Omega." Reyes's eyes widened in shock. "Sir, the Doomsday weapon? We haven't fully tested." "We're out of options, Captain. Do it." Rogers watched as Reyes input the command codes, his fingers flying over the console. The Indomitable's hull began to glow with an otherworldly light, pulsing with energy that defied description. A wave of distortion rippled out from the ship, washing over the nearest swarm vessels. Their sleek metal forms began to warp and twist, disintegrating at the atomic level. For a moment, hope surged through Rogers' veins. Then he saw it, the distortion field expanding far beyond its projected radius, consuming Allied ships as well as swarm drones. "Reyes, shut it down!" Rogers shouted, but it was too late. The weapon's effect grew exponentially, tearing through space itself. A yawning chasm of unreality bloomed at the heart of the battlefield, devouring everything in its path. "All ships, emergency jump!" Rogers commanded, his voice cracking. "Get clear of the anomaly!" As Allied vessels blinked out of existence, Rogers watched in horror as entire star systems were pulled into the growing rift. The Indomitable, still at the epicenter, began to break apart. "Admiral," Reyes's voice came through, distorted and fading. "The weapon. It's beyond our control. We've created something. Oh, God." Static filled the channel as the Indomitable vanished into the cosmic maelstrom. Rogers slumped in his chair, the magnitude of his failure crushing down upon him. The fleet emerged from their emergency jumps to a sight beyond comprehension. A vast, pulsating wound in the fabric of space-time, growing larger with each passing second. "Sir," his science officer whispered, "long-range scans show the anomaly consuming entire galaxies. It's accelerating." Roger stood, his legs barely supporting him. He stared out at the cosmic horror he had unleashed, the Omega Swarm now a distant memory in the face of this new, unimaginable threat. "What have we done?" he breathed, as the remnants of humanity's once proud fleet drifted in the shadow of oblivion.
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.